Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, welcome to the show. We got a great one for you guys today on this Tuesday afternoon. We're not actually going to talk a lot about the DNC convention. I know it's because everybody's talking about that. And there are other things that I do want to discuss. I guess tangentially related, perhaps. We are going to talk about the RNC convention, at least some of the speakers. But generally, look, I'll be honest with you guys. I did not watch it. I did not watch the DNC convention. Even though Bernie Sanders, from what I hear, other than Bernie Sanders, I didn't miss anything, right? So Bernie Sanders is the only one that went out there and actually talked about policy. That's because that's who Bernie Sanders is. He's the guy that talks about policy while everybody else seems to talk about platitudes. And so I wasn't going to waste most of my night to watch everything else, and where, I could take 3 minutes out to watch Bernie Sanders' speech, which, of course, very, very likely excellent and filled with policy positions and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I just decided not to watch it. And I really don't want to cover it either. And so, again, it would be different if this were more engaging, if we had a better Democratic Party that actually did talk about policy and did discuss things that we need to do and not just full of flowery bullshit and platitudes. But that's not the world we live in. And so, although we want to see that AOC speech and then log off, yeah, you're pretty much right. Again, there's a couple of people that, yeah, I would be interested in watching their speech, but AOC only gets a minute. Now, considering how it's AOC, she's going to make the most of that minute and make the best of that minute. But really, it's a slap in the face. It really shows you the direction the party leadership wants to go by allowing John Kasich to speak for 3 times or 4 times the amount that AOC can. So, yes, you're absolutely right. Nope says it was nauseating. The country is circling the drain and they're singing Kumbaya. Did I watch the Trump programming? No, I did not. I played video games. I even streamed some video games for people who watch me on Twitch, which were like 2 people. So I'm just saying, like, hey, I do streams on Twitch where I do play some video games if you're interested in watching that. So that's twitch.tv Jeff_Waldorf. So just letting you know where that's at. See, I just told you. FF9 is a great game. It is. Not my personal favorite, but it is. It's a good one. I think my favorite out of all of them is probably 6. Or 3 here in the United States, 6 in Japan, but you guys know this. Maybe. If you're a gamer, you know this. What do I play? I play MMOs, PUBG. Let's see. What else? Every once in a while, FPS, stuff like that, and all that. So throw it in the chat. Sure, I can do that for you guys today. So we'll just go and find my Twitch here. Real easy. Really? Oh, really? Really? It looks like you've logged in from a new location. You guys. What did you make me do? All right. Of course. Might have to get that later because then it involves me logging into a bunch of different things. So I will do that for you guys later because we got a new show to do. So let me throw that. I played RuneScape. Oh my god. Not really. I'm playing ESO right now. I do, but I have, but I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't hold my interest. It doesn't hold my interest at all. So, unfortunately. And it sucks because I actually do like Elder Scrolls games. So yeah, I'll throw that in the chat later on for you guys. And maybe in the description so you can follow that channel as well. But hey, let's get to the stories, right? So a little bit of drama between Donald Trump and his ex-DHS chief. Fun times. Let's see. We've also got Mike Pence, or, our friend
Mike Pounds.
Exactly. We've got a Fox doctor accidentally making the case for single payer. That's always fun. And we've got disastrous climate change news. So all this stuff. And let's, again, get into... Zach Sherman says the new Final Fantasy VII Remake got a new generation kids into Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, it's fantastic. I do love it, and I also love the original. But right now I play Final Fantasy XIV. And used to play 11. But 11 is a bit of a grind now, and there's not many people left. So,
Tighten up my meat. I like my meat tight.
Just for you guys in the chat. All right. Let's do it. President Donald Trump is raging after his former DHS chief of staff made this video calling the president dangerous and unfit. Take a look.
I'm Miles Taylor. I served as the Chief of Staff of the Department of Homeland Security under the Donald Trump administration. I would go into the office, I would read my intelligence brief, and then it was my job to help the Department of Homeland Security to keep our country safe. What we saw week in and week out, and for me after 2.5 years in that administration, was terrifying. We would go in to try to talk to him about a pressing national security issue, cyber attack, terrorism threat. He wasn't interested in those things. To him, they weren't priorities. But the president wanted to exploit the Department of Homeland Security for his own political purposes and to fuel his own agenda. The California wildfires. On a phone call with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, he told FEMA to cut off the money and to no longer give individual assistance to California. He told us to stop giving money to people whose houses had burned down from a wildfire because he was so rageful that people in the state of California didn't support him and that politically it wasn't a base for him. The policies at the border, he wanted to restart zero tolerance and separate families. He said he wanted to go further and have a deliberate policy of ripping children away from their parents to show those parents that they shouldn't come to the border in the first place. A lot of the time, the things he wanted to do not only were impossible, but in many cases illegal. He didn't want us to tell him it was illegal anymore because he knew that there were, and these were his words, he knew that he had magical authorities. He was one of the most unfocused and undisciplined senior executives I've ever encountered. I came away completely convinced based on firsthand experience that the president was ill-equipped and wouldn't become equipped to do his job effectively. And what's worse, was actively doing damage to our security. People who are still serving in this administration have said to me, just wait until the second term. It'll be no holds barred. It'll be shock and awe. We'll do what we want. Given what I've experienced in the administration, I have to support Joe Biden for president. And even though I'm not a Democrat, even though I disagree on key issues, I'm confident that Joe Biden will protect the country. And I'm confident he won't make the same mistakes as this president.
All right, so there's a lot there, and of course it's an ad for basically backing Joe Biden. You could see that at the end, but man, there are no lies detected at all. What's interesting is this guy served for quite some time, right? And now he's like, well, I mean, now that Donald Trump's running for re-election, now I've got to say this. Well, I mean, look, he's been dangerous the entire term. And now you had to say something. I mean, I'm glad they did, but why didn't they say something sooner? More importantly, why didn't they do something sooner? Why didn't more people do something sooner? And now the other scary part, of course, is that they said, or what he had mentioned, is that people in the administration are saying, we'll just wait till the second term. It's going to be no holds barred. Oh, no. Oh, that's not good at all. That's not good at all. So, look, it's a good ad. It is a good ad. And it does rightly point out how dangerous Donald Trump is. And so, look, I get heat for it. Yes, I'm going to vote against Donald Trump. And so that means I'm going to put my vote towards Joe Biden. I'm honest with you guys. That's the only reason that I can find to vote for Joe Biden is that he ain't Trump. And that's it. That's it. There's really no compelling case for Biden other than that. And so I'm being honest about that. And I wish more people would admit that openly. They always try to find, no, Joe Biden, most progressive candidacy in Democratic Party history. No, he's not Trump. And that's it. You don't have to do anything else. Now, as far as this guy is concerned, he also says, look, I'm a Republican. And so I'm going to support Joe Biden. Well, that's because Joe Biden's pretty close to being a Republican. I can guarantee if it was Bernie Sanders that were running on the Democratic side, this guy wouldn't have piped up. So understand that. Okay, understand that. And so Joe Biden is very much aligned, generally more so with Republicans than he is with progressives, at least the so-called moderate Republicans. Yeah, not progressive at all. But that's okay. Enough on that before I say things that are even more controversial. Okay. So, look, Donald Trump does not care, right? On the one hand, yes, he doesn't have the intelligence to understand the threats about the country, right? COVID-19, great example of that. Because of him, we were unprepared to deal with the global pandemic, despite the fact that Obama had tried to get the country ready and actually left warnings. Donald Trump dismantled the teams, stopped the readiness, refused to take action because his first thought has always been about himself. And there's the second thing, right? Honestly, I think Trump is okay with things like terror attacks happening. I know, again, that's a controversial statement, right? But like, what about all the right-wing terror? Well, Republicans have never tried to stop that. In fact, I believe that he would let that happen and then use it to blame his political foes. Just like he has been allowing coronavirus to ravage the country and then blaming the Democrats. And then, of course, the other thing I'm afraid of is Donald Trump saying, well, hey, only I can fix it, so give me more power. I will fix it alone. I will fix it myself. That is authoritarianism. So, yeah, you're right to be worried about Donald Trump. He is a fascism. Or a fascism. He's a fascist. And so some of you in the chat are right. Trump equals fascism. Fascism will be harder to change than neoliberalism. And of course, neoliberalism is what we're going to get with Joe Biden. And so again, he's right. This defection just adds to the many who have left this administration because they have went too far. And so, look, that triggered the president. That triggered Trump. So now he sends out this tweet, right? He says, many thousands of people work for our government. With that said, a former disgruntled employee named Miles Taylor, who I do not know, never heard of him. That's Miles Taylor in that picture right there. Never heard of him. Said he left and is on the open arms fake news circuit, said to be a real stiff. They will take anyone against us. I detect some salt. Never heard of him. Fake news, real stiff. Look, let's be honest. Stuff like this gets under Donald Trump's skin. That's why I enjoy it, right? Because that skin's super thin. It's paper thin. Remember, this is a president that's all about loyalty, right? And this, when you leave the administration and you speak out against him, you're being disloyal, right? Everybody who serves under Donald Trump does so at his pleasure, right? And if you quit, well, then the problem is you, right? And we're gonna and Trump's gonna call you out, right? So the reality is, the Republican establishment knows that Donald Trump is destroying their party by revealing the truth about the party. That it is a fascist, reactionary death cult that services rich people. Now, before Trump, Republicans could hide this under a veneer of civility and code words, right? Notice how this guy's like, well, I mean, I don't agree with Joe Biden on his goals and objectives, policy positions, but Donald Trump, very dangerous. And it's true, Donald Trump is very dangerous because he has taken Republicanism to its logical extension, to its extreme, right? And so that makes the Republican Party look really, really bad. He has ripped the face off the party, the nice face. And it's probably the only good thing that Donald Trump's ever done is reveal the truth about who Republicans really are, especially the voters. They know what they're getting with him, and they actually love it. Over 80% of Republicans approve of Donald Trump. They love this guy. Now, the problem is the donors, right? And I'm not saying like, okay, I've always pointed out how the donors are the problem, but this is in a different context, right? So now the donors see Donald Trump and they think, we don't want to be associated with an open fascist, with an open racist, right? And so what they do is that they threaten to stop giving money to Republican politicians. Republican politicians, they panic because they're nothing but empty suits filled with cash. Even though, again, they agree with Donald Trump mostly on the issues, right? And so that's why Kasich, Lincoln Project, and the others, they don't like Donald Trump. I mean, do you think John Kasich's a moderate? He was speaking at the DNC the other night. He's one of those anti-Trumpers, right? Pretty much the same as this guy. Now, what makes John Kasich not a moderate is that he signs things like anti-abortion bills, cuts funding to public schools, gives money to charter schools, fights effort to stop climate change by supporting oil and gas, goes against unions. John Kasich agrees with Donald Trump on most issues. He only doesn't like him because he exposes the real ugliness of the modern conservative movement. And also, by the way, Donald Trump also emboldens QAnon crazies to unseat incumbent Republicans. Those are their buddies in Congress, right? The guys that they've served with for years and years and years. They go to the same cocktail parties, whereas these QAnon lunatics, they don't go to those same cocktail parties. They don't cruise the cocktail circuit. And they have a bonus of making the party look even more insane. And so, yeah, that's another reason why they don't like Donald Trump, because he empowers those people. So understand that when Republicans like these come bearing their votes for Joe Biden, it's not because they've seen the light and that they're actually good people, right, with good policies. No, what they're trying to do is do a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party. Actually, non-hostile, the opposite of a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party. they're coming in with kindness. They're bearing gifts and say, don't worry, we can help you defeat the real bad guy. But later on, there's going to be a turn. You're going to see it from the Lincoln Project. You're going to see it from these Republicans that support Joe Biden, that if the party does not turn right and continue to go rightward to be a new home for, disaffected Republicans, I mean, look, that's what they're trying to do, right? I can guarantee that they're trying to turn the Democratic Party into the new Republican Party while the old Republican Party goes off the rails with Trump. It's just going to be a more polite version of Trump's party. Let's stop that from happening. Let's take the Democrats back by electing progressives. Okay. All right. With the Democratic convention ongoing as anti-Trump Republicans decide to speak for Democrats, and Democrats, of course, let them, the Republican convention has decided who will speak for them. And the choices are already pretty bad. Now, it was recently announced that two of the speakers will be Mark and Patricia McCluskey. They will be speaking at the Trump virtual campaign event next week. Because in reality, of course, the Republican primary was canceled. They already knew who they were going with. They were going with Donald Trump, of course. And so they're going to have the RNC convention, virtual convention, next week. And they're, again, lining up speakers. Now, the McCluskeys are now going to be speaking at the event and will also be endorsing Donald Trump for re-election. So if you're not familiar with these people, remember, these are the people that were aiming guns at Black Lives Matter protesters that were passing by their house. That's it. I know they were claiming like, oh no, the Black Lives Matter protesters are violent. They broke into our gated community. In reality, the gate was already open. They didn't bust down the gate. They just kind of walked right in. And they weren't even heading there. They were actually heading towards, I believe it was the mayor's house, to go and demonstrate in front of that. But as they passed by, these guys decided to come out and start pointing guns. I'm surprised that the man didn't shoot his own dick off with that thing. I mean, come on, dude. He can't even hold the gun the correct way. Terrible. Idiots. But hey, they got a lot of praise. Everybody loves them on the right because, you were pointing guns at Black Lives Matter protesters. You know, the actual violent ones, right? Who were unarmed. They didn't have guns. They didn't have weapons, but these guys did. Yeah, pistol packing Karen and Darren, or Karen and Ken, whatever you want to say. So now, interestingly enough, they were charged with felonies for unlawful uses of a weapon. Look, I went through, gun safety, right? And so you don't aim a weapon at someone unless you intend to use it. Okay. These people were pointing weapons. You know how easily it could have went off and somebody would have been shot and killed? I mean, they have no idea what they're doing. There should be mandatory gun safety classes for anybody who wants to own a weapon. Because if not, I mean, you're going to kill somebody. And they almost did. They could have easily. And thankfully they didn't. Now, they did get charged with felonies, but the charges came, of course, after Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner launched an investigation into the couple over the incident. However, if that were to happen, if they were to get felonies, Missouri Governor Mike Parson would pardon them. So in reality, no justice, not for them. But if black people, of course, did the same thing, then they would not get a pardon. So it's all political. It's all bullshit. So now there's that. But there's another speaker that we know of that has been announced, and that's coming in high school student Nicholas Sandman. So Nicholas Sandman had confirmed that he would be speaking at the 4-day event, writing, "I can't tell you all enough how excited I am to be a part of this year's RNC." Now, Sandman, of course, went viral after having a confrontation with a Native American protester. It was somewhat mischaracterized in the media by the Washington Post. And so this man had sued the Washington Post for $250 million. One, because Washington Post had settled, and now he gets to speak at the RNC. So now he's like super rich, and he's flying high. And of course, conservative media has made him a darling. Man, I don't know about you guys, but boy, RNC gonna be lit this year. I mean, you got the MAGA teens and racist gun people. You got somebody named Abby Johnson, who apparently used to work for Planned Parenthood and now, of course, is against abortion, an anti-choice advocate. Of course, as we know, one of the biggest advocates for being against a woman's right to choose, we find out was paid for it. What was paid for. So I wonder if this is something similar. Somebody came at her with a better offer. And then you have Andrew Pollock, father of a victim in Parkland. Interestingly enough, because you would think that somebody who lost their child to Parkland would be in favor of sensible gun regulation that 90% of NRA members agree with. Things like simple background checks that the Republican Party opposes. So that's an interesting choice. Sean Parnell, combat veteran and candidate for Congress in Pennsylvania. I don't know too much about him. In fact, I'm not familiar with a lot of these people. And I'll be honest with you, right? That said, what I can tell you is that this is shaping up to be Woodstock for aggrieved white people, which is completely on brand for the modern Republican Party. So much so that, I've dubbed it Whitestock. So that's going to happen next week. And be sure that it's going to be filled with a lot of coded racism and white grievance identity politics. I can guarantee it. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. I am going to, find that Twitch thing so I can share that with you guys in the chat. I'm also going to thank patrons, channel members. I didn't get a chance to do that yesterday. Share the fundraiser, how that's going, and do all that stuff. Read some comments, and then we'll get back to the stories. You're going to love Mike Pence and his tone deaf flex and the online response to it. Fun times. So stay right here. We'll be back in a minute. Round the Nation.
tighten up my meat.
Mike Pounds.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, welcome back to the show. Do I smoke? No, I do not. I do not smoke, actually. Answering stuff from the chat here. Okay, so we got some super chats. We have some, what is it? Channel members, patrons, of course, to thank as well. Yeah, I do need a seriously updated computer. I'm working on it. Let's see. Dango Bango says, welcome to Polite Fascism, the Lincoln Project. You're right. I read that before from Zach and Dango, but thank you for sending in those super chats. I want to thank patrons Fadi Antuan and Ross Carson, and then channel members Pazit and Tom Asma. So thank you for signing up. Let's see. We are almost a fifth of the way to raising $2,500 for a new stream computer. Yes, the computer that I'm running on is a little bit of a potato. It's not really up to the challenge anymore. It's a good 6+ years old. I did make a couple of upgrades to it over the years, but processor's a little old. The board is old, and so I need to replace it. I just need to replace the whole thing, build a new one from scratch. So the fundraiser, of course, is how I'm going to try to do that. All right. Anyway, so let's move on here. Next story. Our friend
Mike Pounds
is back in the news, and he has been unusually active as of late. It's really interesting. I suppose Mother has finally forced him to leave the basement in order to campaign for re-election. But unfortunately for him, he cannot seem to keep his foot out of his mouth. On Monday, Vice President Mike Pence got in a little bit of trouble boasting about the stock market during a recession and pandemic. So now let me read you that tweet. He says, another record broken for NASDAQ today. This economy is coming back under President Trump, and it will keep growing with 4 more years. Economy growing, recession doesn't make any sense. NASDAQ. He's talking about the NASDAQ, though, right? Did any one of you give a rat's ass about the NASDAQ right now? I'm pretty sure regular working people not interested in the NASDAQ. You know why? It's because you're suffering for the pandemic as well as the economic recession as a result of that. While the Republican Party has done pretty much nothing, next to nothing, right? We've got one $1,200 paycheck. I'm sorry, not paycheck, but coronavirus relief check, right? That if you were to really kind of parse it out, and I saw this stat on Twitter, it would equal to somewhere about $7 a day after all of this time. So great help, right? Great help, tremendous. Every other country has been giving at least $1,000 or about $2,000 roughly to every citizen every month. It has been a UBI. And yet, one single payment of $1,200 and some unemployment benefits that Republicans fought tooth and nail against. And that's, of course, why they can't agree on another coronavirus stimulus bill as the pandemic rages with nearly 175,000 dead. Look, I'm not sure how many Benghazis that is, but that's a lot. It's got to be a lot. And yet, nothing. 25 million people face homelessness now. And Mike Pence, our good friend,
Mike Pounds
is talking about the stock market. Why? It's basically nothing more than a financial Ponzi scheme that is completely and utterly divorced from the real economic conditions in this country. That's what Mike Pence is proud of. He knows nothing about the pain in this country, but he sure got an earful on social media. So let me give you a couple of those comments here. One, did you and Mother see the food lines in Texas today? Miles long, hours waited for noodles and crackers and a bag of beans. Who's benefiting from these NASDAQ numbers? Not the backbone of this country. You're right. Another one says, is that all you guys care about? My God. Have you seen the number of death totals? Perhaps some compassion for the grieving families. You realize that Mike Pence is supposed to be some like Christian, right? That's what he calls himself. No, I'm a Christian. Really? You're not acting like one, because as far as I know, Jesus didn't talk or brag about, the wealth in the temple. I seem to remember him chasing the bankers out of the temple with a freaking whip. As soon as Mike Pence does that, that's the day I'll become a Christian. Okay? So it's never going to happen. Now, another person adds, the stock market is not the economy. I don't know how many times people need to hear that before they understand. I'm assuming a lot more, especially since going back to that old Upton Sinclair quote, people whose paychecks depend on them not understanding will never understand because of that very fact. I know I butchered the shit out of that, but understand that's the general gist of it. Another one says, another one who just doesn't get the stock market does not equal the economy. Millions unemployed don't give a damn about it. Neither do the 170,000 plus dead. The stock market is completely detached from reality. It's the 1920s all over again. You've played too many games with our financial system. And that, of course, is Republicans, as well as some corporate Democrats that have done that too. And another one points out how the administration, or I should say the Federal Reserve under this government, has had to pump in $1.25 trillion to keep the markets up. So basically inflating the markets. And that number, 1.25 trillion, actually it's about double, about 2 trillion. All being put into the stock market, and then billions of dollars being put towards corporations and the wealthy, and we get a sliver, all while people, of course, starve. That's a problem. Now, hey, at least the rich people get to keep more of their money, right? Well, what about all the people who are not invested in NASDAQ? According to one person, they can't pay for a roof over their heads or food, and asks what happens if their job doesn't provide health insurance. We got at least 5 million people who have lost their employer-sponsored health insurance as a result of this pandemic. Of course, that makes people afraid to go back to their job, not just because of COVID. But hey, good for NASDAQ. Good for NASDAQ. And again, millions have lost their health insurance. What are the Republicans doing about it? Jack shit. They're not doing anything. And the reason you can point the finger at them is because they're in charge, right? They could do something. They didn't. Mitch McConnell took his ball, went home. They're not going to be back till September, and everyone is left hanging. No unemployment benefits. I think just 18 states have taken up the administration on their executive order, which would give about $400 to people, but you have to call up and beg Donald Trump in order to do so, and enter into a contract with the White House, with Trump, in order to have them pay that money. And so if that's not just a contemptible power play on the point of the White House bypassing Congress, because Congress and the Republicans, the Senate refuses to do anything about unemployment, I mean, that's why people are suffering. And understand, of course, seems to be by design. And even when Republicans, Mitch McConnell decides he wants to deign us with his presence in Congress, they're going to sit there and argue for a couple of weeks. And by then, the death toll is going to be over 200,000, and millions will lose their house, their homes, and will be out in the street in the middle of a pandemic. This is a disaster, and it shows that they do not care about you. They don't. Mike Pence ought to be ashamed of his disastrously stupid flex. I mean, come on, dude. And what else can you call it other than a ridiculous flex? They're pissing on you and calling it rain. That's what this is. Or I guess in Trump's case, they'll call it golden showers. Because, it sounds fancy. They're not going to understand the connotation on that. But at the end of the day, there's nothing golden about it. It's just piss. And it helps no one. No one who actually needs it. So, good job, Mike Pence. Congratulations for that flex. I'm sure you and your donors are especially happy that the NASDAQ is doing fantastic because you never really cared about the American people, and it shows very, very clearly. We know exactly who you are. Sick person. Okay. Very clear. Very clear. Okay. Let me get a drink of water. Yes, I can drink water with one hand. It's impressive, I know. It's a skill our president has yet to master. All right. A Fox News doctor, part of the medical aid team, just ironically made the case for single-payer healthcare.
Vice President Biden, if he wins, will definitely bring back the individual mandate and create a public option. And here we go again with big insurance and big government of a watered-down type that doesn't pay for the kind of things we need. Now, right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we have never seen such a public-private partnership as has occurred under the Trump administration. We're talking about Operation Warp Speed, making vaccines at a rate that's never been done in human history. We came together and we got all the supplies we needed eventually. The testing has ramped up. All of this occurred backed by private insurance, the current healthcare system. Watered down overreach wouldn't work. And by the way, Ainsley, did you hear the word insurance at all during this pandemic? You know why you didn't? Because people that were uninsured were covered for COVID because of the coronavirus relief packages. Health and Human Services went out and made sure people got the care they need. That's how healthcare works, with doctors, nurses, and the government backing them if in an emergency, not with expanded, watered-down insurance.
He's all over the place. Look, you guys know that's Dr. Mark Siegel, right? Again, Fox News' medical aid team. And he was defending the administration by pointing out that thanks to the government, HHS, people without private insurance, say that they were able to get care for coronavirus because, hey, we already paid for it because we passed legislation to make the government cover them. But and says that's how healthcare works, right? Well, I mean, that's kind of how a single payer system would work. And ironically, he's using that language against a public option, which, by the way, we don't even know that Joe Biden is actually going to do that. There's a recent report out where there are people in the healthcare industry, the health insurance industry, that are already putting out negative ads and talking points about, because they successfully crushed single payer, against a public option now. And that Biden and the Democrats, if they win, are not even going to focus on doing that. They're going to first focus on introducing the ACA fixes. So anyway, back to this member of the medical aid team. No, that's not how healthcare works, right? Look, you shouldn't have to hope that whatever afflicts you reaches global crisis level and then have to wait for Congress to pass a relief bill so that the government can help you with that, right? I mean, it's almost as if a universal healthcare system that cut out private insurance death panels would be better. And you're kind of accidentally making that point. I mean, with that out of the way, let's get some facts, right? So now, private insurance, at least employer sponsored, about 5 to 6 million have lost their employer sponsored insurance, which means they don't have it anymore. They just don't have insurance. You think that people who are unemployed can afford Cobra? No, they can't. That's one of the problems with our health insurance system. And actually, it's far worse than even we're saying. For example, the nonpartisan Kaiser Family Foundation is actually estimating that anywhere near to 27 million Americans have lost coverage in the pandemic. So now, why the disparity in those numbers, 5 to 6 million? It's because they count families. You know, you can go to work, and if your employer, offers insurance and you can actually afford to get on it, well, you won't just get on it yourself, right? No, normally you will cover your wife and your kids. And that's one of the benefits of employer-sponsored insurance, because you actually get a better deal than if you were to go out in the private market. And so you can't just be like, oh, no, I just lost my insurance. No, the entire family just lost their insurance. So, yes, they count. So, yeah, those are more accurate numbers. And so the 5 to 6 million vastly is a vast undercount of the real scope of the problem of having private insurance that is tied to your job, right? And so not only that, but those millions of people would be helped by a single-payer healthcare system. Now, another analysis published by the Urban Institute and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation projected by the end of 2020, 10.1 million will lose their employer-sponsored health insurance or coverage that was tied to a job. And again, I think that's an undercount, because you've got to count the family members in there. So you could conceivably look at possibly 50 to 60 million people that have lost their health insurance through whatever family member had health insurance through their job. And so this is a disaster, right? I mean, if anything shows how healthcare does actually work in this country, it's these disastrous numbers. But the entire premise of Mr. Siegel is wrong, right, of what he said. People in this country haven't just been helped by this, right, by the packages that went through Congress. The administration has claimed, oh, no, we're actually taking care of everybody with coronavirus. No, you're not. No, people are actually getting charged and paying thousands of dollars in medical bills related to coronavirus. In fact, a man and his 3-year-old daughter faced more than $3,900 in bills for care for coronavirus. Others have been charged over $2,000 for tests. And there was one pretty well-known account of a woman having to pay or getting a bill for over $400,000 for coronavirus treatment. And another study has pointed out how the cost of a coronavirus test can vary by 2,700% in the same emergency room. That is a wild variation. I mean, it's insane to run a healthcare system like this. And yet this guy's making the argument that no, everything works great, even though I just pointed out how government supporting the doctors and nurses through an emergency, in his view, is excellent. I mean, this is how it works. Oh, and by the way, even if you have insurance, right? Some doctors, and even though, you're not supposed to be charged for coronavirus, some doctors have decided to send their own bills to patients directly anyway. I mean, it's how it works when you don't have a single payer healthcare system. And even if your bills are actually technically covered, you still have to fight with your insurance company, fill out government forms, whereas, of course, single payer means everything is covered with none of the bullshit. No forms, no fighting with insurance companies. You know why? Because everything is covered, and that's it. It is amazing how people in power can continue to defend this ridiculous system when the answer is obvious. It's right in front of our face. Medicare for all. Every other developed country in the world has a system of government-sponsored health insurance for everyone. Yes, there are varying levels of coverage. And yes, in some countries, there are also private insurance options in some cases, there are nonprofit insurance companies, and that's where they get, most of their health care. Nonetheless, no country works like America because everyone has looked at America's system and has decided that it's not going to work. And it's also barbaric. We live in a barbaric system that lets people die so that health insurance companies and corporate CEOs can make a goddamn profit. It is an immoral system. It's wrong. It's expensive. And yet, if you're out there defending it, you're a terrible person. That's it. Everything about this pandemic has laid bare the problems with our for-profit private health insurance system. And yet, there are people in power that ignore it. They ignore it. And you know why they ignore it? It's because, A, they get bribed from the health insurance industry and at the same time have the best government health care our money can buy, because that's where they get it from. They get it from us. Okay, we pay for that through our taxes, and they get government health care. Okay, think about that. Think about that. The next time that you get sick, the next time that you get a gigantic medical bill, or the next time you realize that you can't go and see a doctor because you can't afford the copay, you can't afford the deductible, okay? Think about that, and then think about what you're going to do about it. I'm worked up today. Okay, I am worked up today. Let's move on. We got a disastrous story here. Hold. All right. We got a couple more stories, actually. So let's do it. Pro-police demonstrators inadvertently showed themselves for who they actually are during a rally in New York. So now what happened is there was a New York, according to WHAM 13 or WHAM 13 out of New York, there was a rally in a small town of Sodus. I believe it's a small town. And this rally, again, was, back the blue, pro-police, more anti-Black Lives Matter. And so an Army veteran, Tatiana Connor, she decided to go there. So now Tatiana Connor is actually somebody who is pro-police. But she's also Black. And so you can imagine the reception that she got when she arrived at this rally. Well, here's it in her own words. She says, quote, "As I'm on the corner, I just hear the N-word being called out. Someone told me then to take a knee. And that's the part where I was like, okay, these people really don't care that I am out here to literally support what they are doing. Instead, they just saw me for the color of my skin." Well, look, what did you expect? Okay, what did you expect? I mean, honestly, going after Black people is what the Back the Blue movement is about. It's not about backing police. No, it's about being a counter to Black Lives Matter. Again, the Blue Lives Matter movement and the All Lives Matter movement is all about, it has always been about going against Black people. It's always been about countering the call for basically the cops to stop killing Black people. And that's what it is. I mean, after seeing a video now, okay, so as the story continues, they said that after seeing a video of how Connor was treated, the organizers of the rally did apologize. And they said, well, racism is, has no part of our movement. Really? No place in your movement, right? I mean, how come then that every, Blue Lives Matter or Back the Blue protest is usually marred by people being racist? I mean, maybe you didn't intend it, but the people who go there certainly did. I mean, that's what this is about. But let me go to a quote here by Wayne County Sheriff Barry Virts, who was there. They said it was not the intention of the rally organizers and the vast majority of people showing support to and for accountable law enforcement to cause anyone harm or alarm. It is disgusting that anyone would use hateful language at a rally, in public or in private conversation. Racist and hateful speech is never acceptable. But I just said that, that's what happens at these rallies. I mean, look, I think that at some point you just need to replace the blue flags with Klan hoods. That's certainly what you act like. The fact is that anytime police, anytime police are murdered by white supremacists, right? Do you ever see any support for the police? You ever see any marches by Blue Lives Matter? I mean, the police officers that were killed back in Austin by sovereign citizens, right-wingers, white people, did they have a White Lives Matter march? Or I'm sorry, a Blue Lives Matter march. I'm pretty sure they would have had a White Lives Matter march, regardless, but only if black people were involved somehow, right? I mean, if the killers had been black, definitely would have been outrage. But since it's white right-wingers, silence. And that's it. But like, as soon as Black Lives Matter comes on the scene and says, hey, please stop shooting unarmed black people. Because, and not just unarmed black people, but also unarmed white people. Black Lives Matter joined a protest. They were part of a protest against the police murder of Daniel Shaver, who was a white man. And so Black Lives Matter also says, don't shoot unarmed white people either. Because it turns out that we all matter. Ironically, you never see All Lives Matter out there talking about this. You never see All Lives Matter defending white people when they're shot by police. Why? Because it's only a foil to be used against black people. It's basically their way of saying, shut up. Hey, black people, shut up about being shot by police. And that's it. A direct counter to that. And so, no, I don't buy it at all. And I absolutely believe that people there would obviously see a black person and immediately think N-word. And, we don't want this person as part of our protest, even if that person is like, no, I do support police. Because it's never been about that. It's never been about that. And it never will be about that. And so understand, that's who these people are. It's just who these people are. Racism, look, I know this happened in New York, right? And some people might be surprised. Well, racism doesn't have any, it's not confined to any geographical region, right? So I hope that Tatiana Connor now understands what Black to Blue is really all about. It's not about celebrating or protecting good cops. It's about defending the bad ones who continue to uphold white supremacy. So I hope she now understands who these people really are. Okay. All right. I think we're going to end that there, everybody. Thank you for going around the nation meet today. Really appreciate it. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. If you're listening on Facebook, please like our page. Follow us. Help us get to 10,000 follows. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're listening anywhere else, for example, if you're listening to the podcast version on Spreaker, please follow us there. Like us there as well. iTunes, same thing, or however that works. Not entirely sure, but either way, please help us out. Consider becoming a patron. Donate to our fundraising campaign for better equipment so that we can really get into 2020 with brand new equipment. Help grow the show. Big donors, of course, will get name a piece of my equipment. Get microphone, camera, desk, chair, all that stuff is up for auction. So chip in $500, and that naming stays forever. So anyway, thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow. You have a good night.
Mike Pounds.
Tolerate.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.